Have you wanted to start using cast iron? Your friends are talking about it. You're seeing it on social media. You're seeing folks cook in it, but you have some concerns. Number one, maybe you don't even know how to start. Maybe you don't know what to purchase. Maybe you have an old rusty piece from a thrift store or granny or somebody, or it just stayed out in your garage and got rusty. One of the number one questions I get, and it is probably the most controversial thing when we're talking about cast iron: do you use soap? Do you not use soap? I want you to stop right here, drop down in the comments before we go any further in the video. Drop down in the comments and say soap or no soap. Then at the end of the video, if you've changed your mind one way or another, then you can come back and reply to that comment or edit it or what have you. But I think it's going to be fun. We're going to hit some highlights today, and mainly we're going to answer that question, soap or no soap. Well, I'm glad you're here, friends, and I'm Miss Katie with Heritage Ways, and I have just come from an event just a few days ago, and I have not even unpacked yet. It's called the Food Independence Summit here in Ohio, not far from me, and it is a wonderful event that teaches everything from seed to spoon, from growing your food to, cooking and preserving it. And part of that is cast iron cooking. My friends at Lehman's in Kidron, Ohio were a sponsor. They're always a sponsor of that great event. And they have partnered with me so that I can bring you some tips and ideas about starting to use cast iron. So I appreciate that so much. I will leave several different links down in the description box of this video, so check those out as well. Just things that you can, resources that you can use for diligent homemakers. It was a great event, and I taught a class, Cast Iron Care and Cookery, and the class was full. And it was fun, and I enjoy that so much, being able to just share and teach and learn myself. So one thing I did at my booth was to, ask people to vote whether you use soap or don't use soap. So it was very interesting. I'm going to tell you the results of that poll here in a little bit, and also I will tell you my answer and why I give that answer. But we talked about that in class along with so many other topics. But at the end of this video, I'm going to share 5 things that you should never do. I don't care who you are or who you listen to or what video or influencer or what have you. 5 things you should never do with cast iron. But other than that, y'all are going to hear a lot of different information. You might watch this video, and then you might watch another influencer or a cast iron producer or what have you, and you might get different information. So to clear up any confusion, here's what I want to say. I'm 56 years old. I have been using cast iron all my life. I'm from cast iron country down in Tennessee, Lodge country. And so I have used it all my life. My grandparents have used it and so forth. So I've been around some cast iron. I know how to cook with cast iron. And I also know that there is usually, or many times, there is more than one way to do things. Okay? There is more than one way. There is more than one way to do whatever, fill in the blank, raise tomatoes, whatever. So there is more than one way to season cast iron, more than one right way to season cast iron, to restore cast iron, to care for and love your cast iron. So I just want to say that if you hear me say something, you say, well, so-and-so said this or so-and-so said that, there is more than one right way. So just remember that as well as we're walking through this. Cast iron is so, it's just so useful. It's so versatile. It, first of all, let me just jump to the clincher. Isn't it just pretty just as a decoration? I just love it. But it's an heirloom item. George Washington's mother left it in her will to her family members. It is something that can be passed down. It's almost indestructible. Now, I have 6 children, so pretty much nothing's indestructible, but it's almost indestructible. it cooks evenly. It cooks evenly and it maintains heat, which is very important to remember that. Say you're scrambling eggs, you're not going to want to cook the eggs until they're perfectly done and cooked, because if you plan on leaving them in the skillet for however long, you know, a few minutes, or serving them in the skillet, they're going to keep cooking, and so they're going to turn brown on the bottom. So just remember that it maintains heat, it retains heat, it heats evenly, and it retains heat. I have a gas stove. I prefer gas, and so that's my perspective that I'm coming from as well. But no matter whether you use electric or you're at campfire, cast iron is great for a campfire, then it retains heat, which is very good if you want to serve your food in cast iron. Chemical-free cooking. It's chemical-free. If you have Teflon, hey, we could still be friends. But I don't have Teflon. I know there are some very negative health benefits. You can research that yourself. I'm not a health professional, but I stay far, far away from Teflon, especially if it's peeling. So you don't have those concerns. You don't have those concerns with cast iron. And it, like I said, it will just, it's an investment in many cases, but it will last for years if you take care of it. And even if you have an old rusty piece, you can take care of that. You can get that back to usable condition. All right, I want to show you just a couple of my favorite pieces because people always ask that. But also I want to mention cast iron should not be considered non-stick. So we're not talking, again, we're not talking about the Teflon type or the, I should say, the non-stick type items. Okay, this is not non-stick. One day when I was talking to a lady at Lodge, and she was saying, you know, make sure that you tell people and that they understand they are not just automatically buying a non-stick item. Now, I'm mentioning Lodge because that's what I grew up with, and it's always been my favorite because that's what I know. But now that I live in Ohio and I've learned about some of the other companies that do not manufacture anymore, but I find those at thrift stores, those are some good too. So I'm not a Lodge only girl, but when you hear me refer to Lodge, it's because that's what I know and love, and it's a good quality product, and it is the longest, it's the last man standing. That's what I like to say. Out of all the standards, you know, the Wagner and Griswold and Birmingham Stove and Range and all those, it's the last man standing. There are some new companies now that are emerging, and that's great and wonderful. I don't know anything about them. I can't speak to those. All right, so when I was talking to the lady at Lodge, she said make sure people know it is not just automatically non-stick. Okay, it does come seasoned. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But that doesn't mean you never have to do anything to keep it that way, to keep it stickless. So it's stickless, not non-stick. All right, so one of my favorites is the cornbread, the corn stick or corn pan, well, it's corn stick pan. And this actually is a Lodge. And I absolutely love it. The tags you see on my cast iron sitting around, that's from my class the other day. So I just haven't taken those tags off. But I love that one. I like the unique pans. I'm loving this one. This, and I have a blog on my website, heritageways.com, about biscuits in this thing. This is the mini cake pan, but I absolutely, positively, these are my new favorite biscuits because I like a biscuit that is not all soft. I know you're going to hate me, but I like a biscuit that's not so soft and fluffy. I know that's weird. I like it when it has more of a crust. And that's the thing about cast iron too. It is great to produce a crust. So pizza and cast iron, oh my stars. It is so wonderful. And I have the best, I'm telling you, it's the best Chicago-style deep dish pizza recipe in my cookbook, one of my cookbooks. So I'll drop that link down below as well so you can grab that cookbook and have that. But anyway, I will also drop the blog down below, and it talks about making biscuits in this pan. No, I have never used it for mini cakes, but I use it all the time for biscuits. Cat head biscuits, y'all. Do you know what those are? Big as cat heads. All right, Now, this is the Black Lock line, and you'll see another one in the background there that my wonderful Mr. Patient gave me for Christmas, and I love these too. So, Black Lock is from Lodge, and it is, if I have my facts straight, it's 3 times more seasoned and 25% lighter weight, if I have my facts straight. All right, so our friends at Lehman's have offered to you, the community of Heritage Ways Diligent Homemakers, a discount on store products, online products. So check the link down below. I don't like to pay full price unless I have to, do you? So you don't have to. So you can pick up different brands of cast iron there if you wish. Now, you may be looking at thrift stores, Goodwill. I want you to get some new cast iron. I want you to look for some old. I want you to just enjoy the process. Here's the thing. When you get new cast iron, newly manufactured cast iron, it is not going to be the same surface that it was when you got cast iron 20 years ago. So when I first got married, and many of you as well probably, purchased cast iron that was not seasoned, but it had that smooth as glass surface. Well, these two do actually. Actually, this is a Griswold that I got at an antique store. And this is actually a Lodge that I got when we got married. It needs some restoring a little bit because it's a little bit rusty on the bottom. This is our most used piece. It's a little bit rusty on the bottom, I'm noticing, and needs a little bit of restoring. So that's no big deal. But the bottom of it here is smooth, just so smooth. And back then, we had to season our own cast iron. It didn't come seasoned. So now it comes seasoned. Particularly, I'm referring to the Lodge store. I'm not familiar with the other new companies that have come along. So I can only speak to Lodge. And I know that it has a rougher surface, and that does not mean I want to hammer this home, because I heard people at the event this past week say, oh, well, it's got a rougher surface, it must be poor quality. No, that's not the reason it has a rougher surface. So cast iron nowadays has a rougher surface than it used to because they season it in the factory, and that process, they have to have that rougher surface so that the oil that they use in the seasoning product, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's either vegetable or canola oil. But anyway, it's one of those two. But the process, the cast iron itself has to be rougher for that to adhere during the process. Okay, so it does not necessarily mean it is a poor quality because it's a rough surface. Now we're going to talk about in a minute poor quality and how to identify it. And don't forget, at the end of the video, I'm going to share 5 things you should never do. I don't care, if you're you just should never do. So stay tuned for that. I want to just tell you, just in case you're trying to identify a piece of cast iron, this is a Lodge. It is not marked Lodge. I know it was manufactured after the 1960s because during that time is when made in the USA had to be stamped on all cast iron. So if you get one that is not stamped, it's made in the USA, but it's not stamped made in the USA, then you know that that's before 1960. So I know this is after 1960, but I also know it's a Lodge because Lodge is the only company that has the notches and the heat ring. By the way, a heat ring is that little raised piece there, that ring. It's also called a smoke ring because that allowed the cast iron to sit in the opening of a wood stove without moving around, which is why cast iron was invented to begin with, to work with wood stoves. So that's what that ring is. Some companies still put that Lodge still puts that heat ring, but they don't put it on their Black Lock. Poorly made cast iron. Now, I'm not trying to call out any particular company, but I am wanting to tell you that I took one for the team and I bought this just to show you and to show my class attendees poor quality cast iron and to point some things out. I want to say, just because, and I'm all about made in USA because that's where I live. I feel like you should shop small, shop local, buy where you are. Start in your little area and then go out from there. Okay? I don't care what country you live in. That's my opinion. That's what I think you should do. That's what I think we should do. We should support where we are. All right. So I try to support Made in USA as much as I humanly possible. I go out of my way to do that. I want to say, just because cast iron is made overseas does not automatically indicate that it's inferior. I have a piece on my wall, a griddle pan. It was made in Taiwan. It's just fine. I like it. I think I got it at Williams Sonoma years and years ago, but it works fine. It's a good piece. This one actually is made overseas, and I want you to see how, two things. So it is super rough, super rough. I mean, it's like a fingernail file. I mean, that's a good way to describe it. It's like a sandpaper, like a big grit sandpaper. Okay. Also, if you see cast iron and it's got like little shiny, it kind of has a shiny flake appearance, like almost little shiny flakes. That's also inferior materials that they use to make the product. Okay, so that just tells you, if you see one and you see those two things, the roughness and the shininess, I definitely wouldn't buy it. Crystals, like crystal looking. All right, here are some essentials that I use personally and I recommend. There are plenty of things on the market and you might like certain things, and I would love for you to share with the community here of Diligent Homemakers. Share what you like, share what works for you, share whatever you'd like so that we can learn from each other. All right, now here's some ways to clean the cast iron. First of all, this particular product here, it's going to cost you about 50 cents. And this one is a copper, I think it's called a copper mesh scrubby. And it is copper and it is very abrasive. You don't clean with anything abrasive. You wouldn't clean with Brillo pad, and I'm emphasizing cleaning as opposed to restoring. Right now we're just talking about a piece of cast iron that you've just cooked with. It's seasoned just fine, and you have just cooked with it and you want to clean it. You would not use something abrasive. That's should be one of my 5 things at the end, but it's not. Anyway, you wouldn't use a Brillo pad or this. However, you should use something abrasive when you're trying to restore it. And we're not really going to get into that today. I do think there's 2 in a package and they're $1 at the dollar store. Maybe they're $1.25. I don't know anymore, but things have gone up. But that is wonderful to have that. And you use it and use it and use it, and then eventually throw it away and get another one. That's just fine. All right. So there are things such as this, the chain mail, and you could use this. It's not necessarily my go-to, but I have heard someone told me at the event that there's a smaller chain mail and it has a sponge in the middle and it works very well as well. So that's just an option. However, my go-tos are these left right here for cleaning. I had someone tell me the other day that her granny taught her to clean or scrub if you've got bits of food stuck on cast iron, to put some salt in the pan and a raw potato, cut it in half, and the potato's got just enough moisture, and then you got something to hold on to and you can scrape it that way. I'm not going against anybody's granny at all. So you could do that, but you can use salt as an abrasive. This is the only salt I have in my house. It's Redmond real salt. I use it for everything. When you have food stuck on, you just got a couple things going on. You didn't use enough grease or liquid, or your pan's not seasoned well enough, or both. Okay, because quite honestly, cast iron is not intended to use, I said a while ago, it's not nonstick. It's not intended to use without cooking oil or grease or lard or whatever you want to use. It's not intended to. It's not intended to dry fry. Now, the only time I don't use any grease or oil or something is when I'm searing a roast. So searing is just putting it in there in a very hot skillet and just getting both sides of that good roast brown, and you've made a crust on it, and then you put it in the crock pot or in the oven in your cast iron Dutch oven or whatever. So that's searing. That's the only time I ever don't use oil or grease or what have you, healthy fat. So if your food sticks, and we have food to stick in this house, even though we do what we're supposed to. But these scrapers, y'all probably all have one of these Pampered Chef scrapers. But I don't know if these still come with the Lodge skillets or not. But, you know, you can buy these separately as well, or use a credit card. I don't care. But just get yourself something to scrape that you can scrape your pan, your bits. That's not going to scratch it, to use one of these plastic scrapers. Also, I absolutely love these two things. This is another $1 at the Dollar Tree, y'all. And this is, well, actually I was in a store the other day and it was like $2. Okay, so one of these, this is Scotch Brite, but I'm not promoting any one type of brand, but just one of these handled brushes, and it's got this scraper here on the tip. Okay, we use this thing all the time. You can tell because it's nasty looking. You can throw it in the dishwasher too, by the way. We use this all the time, and this scrubby. Now, I happen to know that there's a lady who makes these for Lehman's, and they sell them. I've seen her sitting there at ladies' night out, and making these. So Lehman sells these. I'm not sure if they're online. I know they're in the store. And also we sell them on our site. My daughter makes these. So at heritageways.com, I'll drop a link down below. These are wonderful. In fact, she made me one of these, and this is a synthetic, and it's kind of abrasive. If you crochet, you can make one out of scrubby yarn. I don't crochet. I don't know how to talk about it. But she made one, experiment, and I was like, oh my stars, will you make me like a million so I can sell to our diligent homemakers? So she does make those for us, and I love this. So honestly, this, and I just throw it on the top rack of the dishwasher on the little stick. What are they supposed to be called? The things that stick up on the top rack of the dishwasher. I can't think of the word. But anyway, just put it down there and it washes it. Eventually you have to throw it away and get another one, but it lasts for a long time. And one of these and one of these. That's really, in my opinion, all you have to have. And that's not an expensive thing. Also, I want to point out too, I like this. It's made of some mystical material, I guess. I don't know what it's made out of. But it's called a Lodge Rust Eraser, and it works. And I encourage people at my classes or my booth or whatever to test it out, and it works. Now, I wouldn't use it on an entire cast iron pan that's rusted and needs to be restored, but you know, I would just use it on a little spot. Actually, that works. I need to show you on the camera. Okay. I hope you can see this in the light, but I'm just kind of showing you this. There's some rust right there. Now, this pan does need to be restored on the bottom, but see, the rust is gone. You see that? So, yeah, it works on little spots. And the poll results, or the voting results, are this. As people came up to our booth at the event and they said, oh, my granny would just die if she knew, or roll over in her grave if she knew that I was using soap on her cast iron. And I said, look, I'm not going against anybody's granny. I'm not. So the poll results were 60% never use soap, 40% yes, use soap. And here's the answer, y'all. Back when our grannies, our great grannies did have soap, soap was made from lye. Now, many of y'all use lye to make soap nowadays. That's great. That's fine. But lye is caustic, and it wears away at the seasoning of cast iron, which is why You can use oven cleaner. You can look on YouTube for videos. I don't have a video about it, but you can use oven cleaner. There's a process you can use that to restore cast iron because it has lye in it. That's why Granny and Great Granny said never use soap on cast iron. Okay? So nowadays, yes, we use soap if necessary, but it should not be necessary. And, you know, nowadays we have the liquid dish soap. There's no lye in it. So if necessary, it is not going to hurt your cast iron if you have to dip it down in your soapy dishwater. And you don't want to soak it, but dip it down in there and scrub it with whatever you need to scrub it with. And we use these two things. Okay. Another way to clean it, if you are scared Granny's going to roll over in her grave and you don't want to use soap, if there is food stuck on in your skillet, you can come over here and put some hot water. Now let me just point out that you would never want to, this is true with any kind of like stoneware or any kind of bakeware, any kind. You never want to introduce extreme temperatures. Like you wouldn't want this really hot and then run cold water over it. Or, you know, you would want whatever you've got, whether it's your Pyrex or your stoneware or your cast iron, not too hot. You know, you don't want opposite temperatures. That will crack it, break it, what have you. Same with cast iron. But if you wanted to, if this was cold and it sat there while you ate supper and something was stuck on that you thought you couldn't get off with those other tools, you could put some water in it and heat it back up and let it boil. I did this the other day and let it boil and get that, and the food will come off. So if you don't want to use soap, you can do that. Just heat some water up in your cast iron pan. So that is one way to do that. Now we're going to talk about the 5 things you should never do, no matter what else you've been told. Number 1, never put cast iron in the dishwasher. Nope. Never. Number 2, never put cast iron away when it's wet or even damp. Dry it completely. And then if you want to, you can even put it in the oven on low to make sure it's completely dry, or warm it up on the stovetop for a little bit if you want to. That's absolutely fine. You can put a very thin layer of oil after you've cleaned it, just to kind of beef up that seasoning. But never put it up wet or damp. It's going to rust. Don't store your leftovers in cast iron on the counter or in the fridge. No, put it in something else. Get your cast iron cleaned and get it put away. Don't use olive oil to restore your cast iron. Don't use olive oil when you're restoring cast iron, bringing it back from its rusty or dirty state. Don't use that because the smoke point is not high enough. As a matter of fact, I don't even cook with it. I use an animal fat, but if you want to cook with it, that's fine. You can use animal fats. Those are the best. And if you want to, also they say is good, Crisco, vegetable oil, canola oil, soybean oil, or grapeseed oil. I don't use those because I don't consume them, but if you want to use those to restore your cast iron, you can do so. I just use animal fats. Number 5, you don't use aerosol oils like this to restore or cook with, because it can cause a residue that you don't want. And then a bonus, I guess it's number 6, don't be afraid to use your cast iron, y'all. Don't be afraid to use it. Use it often. Love it. Use it. Appreciate it. Don't be scared of it. Let me know in the comments if this video helped you and what you'd like to share about your cast iron journey. I'm Miss Katie with Heritage Ways, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you've subscribed to Heritage Ways, and make sure you visit me at heritageways.com. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great day. Count your blessings and know that you are loved.